It is absolutely amazing to see the corruption that has been exhibited this last week and the calculated manipulation. I wanted to come in today and talk, even though I know this is a slow news time. This is why this all happened this week, by the way, folks. You understand. They like to break the damaging news on weekends. They'll break it on Fridays. They'll break it on Saturdays because they know people aren't going to be watching the news like they will at the beginning of the week. We understand that, too. Everybody that's in news, and certainly the politicians, understand this. This has been building up this entire week. And, you know, it's like the big lie. You know, if you're going to tell a lie, go big. Go big. Because it's going to be easier for you to sell the big lie than it is a small lie. That's what the politicians understand. That's what the Clintons have understood. And, you know, when you go for the corruption, you got to go big. You got to go so big people won't even believe it. Okay? That's what they do. And so we've seen this whole thing unfolding this entire week. It began on Monday when we had the private meeting between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton at the airport tarmac that we're told was just a coincidental tete-a-tete, okay? Then on Wednesday, we find out the Department of Justice, which is controlled by Loretta Lynch. 2 days later, we find out that they're going to recommend that the State Department be given 27 months to produce these documents. The irony is that they need more time because there's so many documents that are involved in this security issue, okay? So then we find out that there's going to be a deposition on Saturday. Who knew? Oh, well, Loretta Lynch knew, the FBI knew, I'm sure the Clintons knew. And that's the issue there, folks. We're told that this is bad optics. We see the headlines here. Daily Mail says, well, you know, quote unquote, hindsight is 20/20. Hillary says, you know, Bill is just kind of this bumbling idiot. You know, he's a guy. You know, men are just such idiots, especially Bill. You know, he's just an idiot. You need me. You need a woman here. But it's just this bumbling Bill. Hindsight is 20/20. It was regrettable, but it was a short chance meeting. Okay. This is all that we're hearing. We're hearing they just talked about their close long-term friendship. I don't understand why nobody is calling her on that. Why hasn't she recused herself simply because they are close long-term friends? If you're a prosecutor, if you're a judge, and you have a long-term personal and career relationship with somebody, he gave her first big job in the federal government. Bill Clinton did. They are long-time personal friends. Why isn't that in and of itself a reason to recuse yourself from this situation? Everybody knows she's on his team. Why is this not an issue for anybody? I don't even hear anybody talking about that. They started talking about, well, she needs to recuse herself when they got so blatantly in your face about it. I mean, people have given them a pass about the fact that they have known each other for decades, that he's been her mentor, she's been his minion, and she won't recuse herself. That's not a problem. They say, well, okay, well, if that's not a problem, I guess we can just meet privately on a plane for a half hour and discuss tactics. Why was that important this week? And you understand, too, of course. We know, and we had the article, we had Larry Nichols. We were telling you every way we could, this is a sign. Everything's happening this week. If you didn't already know, this lady was a minion of the Clintons, that this was a political conflict of interest. It was a patronage conflict of interest. It was an employment conflict of interest long before this meeting ever occurred. This meeting occurred because of all these things. And if you didn't understand the fix was in, then just consider the fact that all these three things happened. The meeting on Monday, the announcement that they're not going to release any of these documents until the middle of her first term, if she gets elected. Probably will at the rate things are going because, you know, these same corrupt people are going to be controlling the ballot boxes. And then we have the meeting on the Saturday. It's not just any Saturday. It couldn't have been a deader news time unless they had done it on the Saturday before Christmas, the last shopping day before Christmas. And even then, it might not have escaped the radar. I don't know if anybody is out there listening to us today. I came in here because I wanted to cover this live, what was going to be said yesterday, and how it was going to be spun by the media. It's very important that you not let them use this same MO all the time. These people are career criminals. They planned this stuff. They timed this stuff. They timed it for 4th of July weekend. Not just any weekend, the 4th of July weekend, to let all this stuff go there so they could spin it, and it would be old news. They'd move on to something else before you ever paid attention. Are you paying attention? Let's look at what they had to say here. Look at how they spun this. And nobody spins it better for the Clintons now, this election cycle, than the Washington Post. They've always been lefties. They've always been biased, and it's always been obvious. But I have never seen anyone spin it more heavily than the Washington Post has been spinning it this year. I mean, just the worst I've seen. Of all the liberal papers of the mainstream media, Washington Post is absolutely the worst. Now, say the FBI agents interviewed Hillary Clinton for 3.5 hours Saturday morning. And, of course, he had the great, I got a note here about, if you haven't seen the Drudge Report, you see the picture of the headlines. They've got the New York Post where they've got Hillary on a barbecue grill wearing her Chairman Mao suit that she always wears, okay? I guess she's going to be our Grand Mao when she becomes president. But they have her on the barbecue. But, of course, she's not feeling the heat because she's got people like the Washington Post to douse the flames for her. Here's what they have to say. And they're quoting her, and they just put this out there, and then they put their own spin on top of it. But here's Hillary's campaign spokesman, how he spun it. He said she gave a voluntary interview, and she is pleased to have had the opportunity to assist the Department of Justice in bringing this review to a conclusion. So think about this. Keywords here: voluntary, assist. I'm helping them, okay? I'm volunteering to help them, and we're finished. Okay, it's done. That's the way she's spinning this. Now, understand that they've been spinning this for a very long time. Remember it's back in May. We had FBI Director James Comey. She kept telling everybody, this is not an investigation. It's merely a security review. It's merely a security inquiry. And so they talked to Director Comey, FBI Director James Comey. Fox News talked to him about that back in May. They said, what about this security inquiry? What does that mean? And he goes, well, we're the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We're conducting an investigation. That's what we do. We don't do security inquiries. I don't know what that's about. They use the language. They spin the language. They prevaricate around the bush using this language. So when she says it's a voluntary interview, and I was watching one of her surrogates on CNN spin this for her. And he said, look, if she was guilty, she wouldn't have even have talked to them. And it's like, oh, really? If you tell the FBI in a big investigation, you're not going to talk. I've got nothing to say to you. You go in and you just keep taking the Fifth Amendment. That's going to make you look very guilty. So if you're guilty and if you're smart, yeah, you will do this, even though there's a danger in it. And Hillary Clinton pointed out what was so dangerous about this. And I think it's important to take a look at this because I think it explains the cozy meeting that happened on Monday. When she was talking about the meeting, she said, you have to be very careful with this. These meetings are very, very dangerous. She said, and of course it happened with General Petraeus. They weighed actually charging him for lying to the FBI because of his prevarications, trying to be evasive. They ultimately didn't do it. They gave him a hand slap, and of course they're not even going to do that to Hillary Clinton. But she said, many times the FBI will do investigations, and they might question someone on the actual issue before them and not bring any charges on that issue, but they may charge them for lying to the FBI, which in itself is a very, very serious crime. So this is very dangerous for me to go in and talk to them because, she has a real problem telling the truth, doesn't she? But she was coached, folks. You have to understand, Hillary Clinton, who has not had a press conference in, let's see, what has it been now? Maybe 215 days or so since she's had a press conference. I know it was a couple of weeks ago. We talked about how she'd hit her 200th anniversary of not having a press conference where she actually had to field questions. She has prepared statements that she gives. This was a prepared statement. She had all week to prepare the statement because the Attorney General, who had seen everything, met with her husband, who is also under investigation and has a relationship with her that should have caused her to recuse it. Stay with us. And the minute you are lulled to sleep by these lies, by these promises, that is when liberty dies. That's when you will die, folks. So we have to stay awake. And that's why I'm so concerned how the population is being played by this criminal gang, the Clintons. This last week, the sequence of events, the fact they planned all this for the 4th of July weekend, and it's the Department of Justice. Look, the FBI is part of the Department of Justice. If you think, really, that everything is okay because, as the Hill says, the FBI director is now taking center stage in the Clinton email case, What a load of baloney, okay? They say he's now firmly in the driver's seat. Yeah, like the Navy SEAL was firmly in the driver's seat, okay? Not controlling it, though. They say Comey has repeatedly clashed with the White House since he took office nearly 3 years ago. This is The Hill. On issues ranging from the use of encryption technologies to the ability to vet Syrian refugees coming to the U.S. to the existence of the so-called Ferguson effect on policing efforts. Okay? And then there's the famous 2004 episode, which underscores what people hope is his credibility. We'll see. We'll see. His credibility is going to be defined not by what he did in 2004, but what James Comey does in 2016. As Donald Trump tweeted out, it's impossible for the FBI to not recommend criminal charges against Hillary Clinton. What she did was wrong. We all know that it was wrong. Anybody who is paying attention to this knows that it is wrong, unless they are firmly entrenched in a cult-like trance about the Clintons. Only the most die-hard Clintonites can't see what's wrong here. I even heard people totally in the tank for Hillary at the end of the week saying, this thing at the airport with Bill Clinton, that's really bad. I'm really uncomfortable with that. That had a lot of visuals. It's hard to visualize what's going on with the emails and that sort of thing. But boy, when you just have that visual right there, you describe that. People can picture that in their minds, what's going on with that. But, back in 2004, he rushed to the Washington hospital to block George W. Bush's White House from renewing a warrantless wiretapping program, while then Attorney General John Ashcroft lay ill in the hospital. Now, great, okay? He's had fights about encryption technology and so forth and so on. But to understand, this is also the guy who wants a backdoor key into all the devices that we have. He wants a key to everything. That's not only a bad idea for investigators, it's not only a bad idea for us, it's not only a violation of the Constitution, but it also doesn't give me warm fuzzies when I think about FBI Director James Comey. Also, he was right when it came to the watch lists. Understand, the watch lists could be an effective tool to investigate terrorism. Could be. But they want to use it as a penalty. It's already being used as a penalty with a no-fly zone. They want to use it as another penalty for gun control. You cannot do pre-crime penalties and still have a country and a rule of law. You cannot take away people's right to a speedy trial, to be publicly accused, to confront the witnesses against them, to even know what the charges are against them. That's what happens with a watch list. Now, if you want to put somebody on a list and say, we're investigating this person or whatever, but you cannot apply penalties to somebody that has not gone through that process of being charged, indicted, and then found guilty, then you apply the penalties. They want to skip all of that stuff. They've already done it with the no-fly list. They've applied penalties for people not allowing them to travel. Now they want to apply it for gun control. Now, James Comey said, just from a pragmatic standpoint, he didn't have a problem with it necessarily from the fact that this was a pre-crime punishment. What he said was, wait, we're investigating these people. They're going to know that they're being investigated if we block them from buying guns. To which Loretta Lynch said, I don't care about investigating terrorists. I want gun control. That's essentially what she said. She said, nah, I don't care. We're going to shut that down. So this is a guy who works for Loretta Lynch. She is above him. So I don't really buy the fact that when she refuses to take herself out of the case, that she's not going to be shutting this down. Why is she not going to be indicted? Well, let's talk about this, okay? There's peer pressure, career pressure, if you will, okay? These people, clearly Loretta Lynch doesn't want this. We understand that. She's a close friend of the Clintons. Her career minions are going to know this as well. They're also going to know that they may be very well working for Hillary in a year. So they're not going to have a lot of incentive to do anything about that. We also see that she is still leaving herself in control. She refuses to recuse herself from it, okay? Now, as I just pointed out, she didn't have any trouble shutting down FBI Director Comey when it came to the watch list stuff. And she said it's very important for her to remain in the loop as a supervisor. Again, to be able to put pressure on, and here's the key thing, to remain as a mole inside this investigation for the Clintons, to let them know what's happening, to give them intel on what the FBI knows, what the FBI is about to do in their criminal investigation. All of that information will continue to go to Loretta Lynch. That's why it was critical for her to meet with Bill so that Hillary could be briefed and be prepared so she didn't commit perjury when she had her questioning. Her voluntary questioning, of course, as she likes to spin it, and as the Washington Post likes to spin it. They say here, they say this was the meeting on Monday. This is the way the Washington Post calls it, an impromptu meeting. It just happened, just happened. It was impromptu. And then they say Lynch did not formally recuse herself, saying that would mean that I wouldn't even be briefed on what the findings were. So she seemed to promise, now this is the Washington Post, understand, she seemed to promise she would not veto whatever decision came from federal prosecutors. She seemed to do it. Okay. She won't publicly do it. She will covertly move against it, as I said, with pressure, and she will be a source of information. But again, if she is that closely connected to the Clintons that she just can't say no, and they got to meet for a half hour, why wouldn't that be a basis for her to recuse herself before she gets caught in this dirty deed? We had the New York Times, when George Bush was around, saying Attorney General Alberto Galanzas is impeachable, and they give the basis for it. They say, well, it's not just for high crimes and misdemeanors, but it's for conduct, quote, grossly incompatible with the office held, subversive of that office, and of our constitutional system of government. Loretta Lynch should be impeached.